What if your daily life could look like a movie? I'm Brandon Lee, and in this video, I'm going to share a whole lot of tips for shooting selfies that don't look like selfies. Filming yourself from far away, overhead shots, low angles, cats, filming your hands and feet, shots in vehicles, mirror shots, pulling focus, multiplying yourself, even erasing lights and tripods without AI. So if you're ready to take your solo filmmaking to the next level, let's go ahead and get started. This video is not sponsored. Here's some shots I filmed of myself walking around Hong Kong. So why don't these shots look like selfies? Well, one reason is because the camera is far away. It gives the impression that somebody else has set up the scene. For instance, here's a shot I did close up with a 24mm lens. Notice how it feels like I'm almost about to turn and talk to the camera. Now here's the same scene, only filmed from far away across the room with a 100mm lens. It feels much more like I'm unaware of the camera. And that voyeuristic feeling is one of the things that makes a shot feel cinematic, when the subject appears to be unaware that they're being filmed. All right, here's a step-by-step walkthrough of how I quickly set up one of these shots. First, I extend my tripod. In this case, I'm using the ultra-portable Ulanzi AT01. Then I drop my magnetic variable ND on my lens. This one's by H&Y. And the lens I'm using is the Samyang VAF 75mm. Then I connect my phone to the camera using the Sony Monitor and Control app, which gives me control of all the camera functions. Plus, I can tap on myself to set the focus. Then I just wait for the right moment and do a little acting. Now, of course, it can be risky to step away from your gear while shooting, so I make sure to film in safe areas and I stay close to my camera as long as possible until the moment I'm ready to shoot. The risks are going to be different in every situation, so you just have to do your research before you go out and shoot and always stay aware of your surroundings. Going above eye level is another way to create that cinematic feeling of voyeurism. I'm going to make things extra challenging by shooting in low light and shooting out in public. Wide lenses make things look a lot higher up, so I'll be using my Viltrox 16mm f1.8 lens, which is both wide angle and good for low light shooting. And I'll be combining some other gear from my kit to create a super tall tripod. This is the Runway carbon fiber rod, which is a lightweight rod that you can extend, and I attached it on top of my Ulanzi AT01 portable tripod. Then I put a ball head on top of the carbon fiber rod. When extended, this rig goes way over my head and it's steadier than you might think. As usual, I used the Monitor and Control app for all the camera settings and to preview my framing. For this shot, I put these street signs in the foreground, which gives a sense of scale to the shot. We can see that the camera is at the same level as the signs, so it tells us how high up it is. For a shot like this, you would usually use a special kind of rig that requires a lot of extra gear. But here, I'll demonstrate how to do it with the same kit I've been using for all the other shots. I'm using the same combo of the Ulanzi AT01 portable tripod and the Runway carbon fiber rod with the ball head on top. And the lens I'm using is the ultra lightweight Rokinon Remaster Slim 21mm. I raised up the rig all the way to the ceiling, and then I framed up my shot and filmed myself lying down on the couch. But as you can see, there is one problem. The tripod is obviously in the shot. So what I did next is I moved the tripod and filmed a slightly different angle just of the ground, an empty plate. Then in post, I repositioned the shot and masked out the portion that I needed. And I layered it over the original shot to cover the tripod feet. And now we have a clean top-down shot. What about using AI for the same task? Well, Runway just released the new Aleph model, so I decided to give it a try. And here's the results that I got. Looks pretty good at first glance, but there's some weird stuff going on here. Look at my feet. It actually replaced my feet with an AI version, which I don't quite understand. And if you look at the overall motion, it's a little bit smeary and weird. So I did a quick mask in post and just used the part of the AI shot that I needed to cover the tripod feet. But even that's not quite perfect. As you can see, the Runway version has a lot less detail in the carpet, even though it did match the texture pretty well. So overall, the real version is still the better way to go. Here's the technique for using your phone to shoot an ultra-low angle shot. I put my iPhone 16 Pro on a mini tripod and I angled it to face the rear lens up. But the problem here is that the screen now faces the ground, so there's no way for me to preview what I'm shooting. But I do have this new phone monitor from SmallRig that uses a wireless connection with the iPhone via screen mirroring. So I used that SmallRig monitor to preview my framing when I couldn't see the actual iPhone screen. The monitor works with any app, including Blackmagic Camera, which is my preferred app for shooting on an iPhone. So I recorded this shot in Apple Log for the highest quality. And for this shot, I happened to find this Oscar-worthy cat to be my co-star. I was able to quickly set up the framing and get the shot before the cat decided that she'd rather be somewhere else. Self shots tend to be static, so filming on vehicles is a great way to add some motion into the shot without needing to move myself or the camera. To film myself in a taxi, I put my 24mm lens on my camera and rigged it on my K&F Concept mini tripod. I held the tripod at a low angle, resting it against the front seat. And here's the resulting shot. I used autofocus for this one just to make things easier. You can also use this same rig to film from the side. Also, be sure to get the reverse shot showing what you are seeing in the scene. To film myself on the ferry, I used the same 24mm lens and rigged the camera to a support beam. And here's the resulting shot. Once again, this was in autofocus mode. And here's the reverse shot showing what my character is seeing in the scene. To add variety to your self shots, you can film closer angles on your hands and feet. The tricky part here is getting the framing and the focus just right. Sometimes you can just do trial and error, like I did for this shot. But here's a trick for making things easier. First, you find a small object that fits naturally into your scene. In this case, I found this leaf on the ground. Next, place the object in the center of your frame and focus your camera on it. Then, when you walk, make sure you step on it as you pass by the camera. This will make sure that you have a moment in your shot when your foot is perfectly framed and focused. One more tip about shooting hands and feet, I like to put the camera at so-called eye level with my subject. So we're not looking down on the hands or not looking down on the feet, we're looking straight at them. To me, this creates a more subjective and therefore cinematic look. So whenever possible, I keep the camera's tilt at 0. All right, here's a shot we've all seen before, the classic mirror selfie. There's only one problem. In order to get the right perspective, I have to put the camera in the shot. So here's a quick way to remove the camera cleanly. After I film myself, I move my tripod slightly to the side, and then I shoot another take of the empty bathroom. I then mask out the area that I need, and I move it to fit the original shot, and instantly the camera's gone. I just need to be careful that my body never crosses over this part of the shot. In my last video about filming yourself, I showed you how to use the monitor and control app to set focus marks and pull focus accurately. Well, guess what? There's an even simpler way to do this, which I'll show you now. Using the same app, I make sure that spot focus is enabled. Then I tap once to set the focus on myself. Then I hold the phone just out of frame in my shot, and I tap on the background to shift the focus again, which creates a beautiful, smooth rack focus. It's really as easy as that. Just figure out where you want the focus to shift to, and then tap on your phone during the shot. Here's a tip for filming yourself using natural light, especially in urban areas. If you're in a city on a sunny day, you'll probably see reflected sunlight bouncing off the buildings. You can use that reflected sunlight to create a really interesting look. For this shot, I positioned myself with the real sun on one side of my face, and then the bounced sunlight on the other side, which creates a very three-dimensional look because the light is coming at me from both sides. So the next time you're out shooting in a city, look for sunlight coming from one direction and a reflection coming from the opposite direction, and you can get a great three-dimensional look without having to set up any lights at all. Now I'll show you some techniques for using a single portable light. In this case, I'll be using the Zhiyun Molus X60, but you can use whatever light you happen to own. For this first shot, I set up my frame with this neon sign in the background, and then I put the light at a 90-degree angle to the camera in CCT mode, and I adjusted the color of the light to match the neon signage, and I also used the dome diffusion on the light to make it a bit softer. So this created an edge light that helped to separate me from the background and make me stand out in the shot. For this next one, I used RGB mode set to red, and I bounced the light off a nearby wall for a more natural ambient look. Then I set the camera up again at a 90-degree angle to the light, and I checked my composition with the monitor and control app as usual, and then I just waited for some vehicles to pass by to give some extra motion. And the great thing about using an RGB light is you can switch up the color instantly to create different vibes. Sometimes the perfect lighting requires the light stand to actually be in frame. So here's how I easily remove the stand in post. After I shoot my shot of myself, I just move the stand out of frame, and then I shoot a second take of the background. Then I mask out a section and lay it over my original shot, and boom, the light is gone. I just need to make sure that no cars pass through the shot, otherwise you get this disappearing ghost bus effect. There's no need to be lonely when you're filming yourself. Just clone yourself in post. Here's how I did this shot quickly and easily. First, I found a visually interesting location. This location should be totally static, no other moving people or moving objects. Then I set up my camera in a wide shot. I used a 24mm lens, and I attached the camera to this rod using my Ulanzi flexible mini tripod. Then I rolled a very long take, starting with an empty background, and then I moved myself into frame in different locations in the room, occupying each space for at least 10 seconds. Then in post, I chopped up the clip and masked out myself in each position. I put it all on a timeline, and here's the final result. It's seamless and easy as long as you make sure not to overlap yourself in the frame. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned some useful tips for starring in your own movie. Gear links are in the description as usual, and there's a lot more coming up, so please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.